Sabaho everybody and welcome back to the channel. And today we're back. We're bringing back a show that I've had for some time. And I think you guys have seen also Juan Carlos on it before. I want to say first and foremost, welcome Juan Carlos back to the team. I would say you've always been part of the team here.
It's like I never left.
It's exactly what it is. I always feel like if I ever need any help or any questions or anything's going on, or even if I'm just creatively stuck in a little hole that I can't get out of, Juan Carlos is always there. He's available. He's close, and he likes ramen, so I can't really fault him for any of that. You know, he's good.
Our ramen dates are going to be legendary. It's good times.
I'm telling you, dude. I am still thinking about. I like the place that we went to so bad that it's an obsession. It's a very weird. The flavors are great. It's vegetarian. It's close by. It's not bad as far as the pricing.
No, I was shocked. I mean, I didn't go for the vegetarian option, but I was really starting to break it down. I was really thinking about it. It's so difficult to find a place that's not just a veggie bowl of ramen, but that it's also a vegetarian broth.
Exactly.
I've been to places where they'll take the pork broth and then just dump in some veggies, and there you go.
Exactly.
But that was a great find. So and anytime you want to bribe me with more noodles and soup, I am totally down to shove more food into my face.
These words will come back to haunt you, my friend, and in a very good way. It will not be a bad dream, definitely for sure. So the goal about bringing back the podcast, and hopefully you guys will be able to see this. This is going to be a video/audio podcast. So the video that you guys will see here on YouTube, and of course in the link in the description below, I'll also provide you guys an audio version of this if you'd like to basically just listen to it. Hopefully no visuals will, some things may be lost, but hopefully it'll still be entertaining. It'll still be cool. But I wanted to talk to you, Juan Carlos, a little bit about some of the stuff that's coming up, but also kind of recapping some things that we've talked about in the past. Namely the Pixel line of devices. You and I have, I think we share a passion for Pixel devices for the form factor, for the functionality, the camera science that we have in there, the tech that's behind the cameras.
Well, and more than anything else, I feel like from our last conversation, kind of recapping our ramen date, just the notion of following up on manufacturers' claims. So not just do we cover every single little bit of minutia on every leak and rumor of the most popular brands, but I kind of feel like the Pixel 4 was done wrong this year. Everyone made up their mind about a month before the phone was actually launched, and it's one of these devices that I think deserves some long-term follow-up and some time of long-term coverage. And I think for both of us, we've only just recently taken the SIM cards out of our Pixels.
And I cannot wait to put it back in.
I've been running it as a daily driver. I think you have been too, right? Running it as your daily?
It's been my daily since I found it's hard to explain, but in the years that I've had different devices and so on, we change them so often. But ever since I put my SIM card into the Pixel 4 XL and I've used it, I have had a hard time taking it out. Yeah. It's just it's such a reliable device, not just from the sense of the daily activity that I want it. It's fast. The 90 hertz display is definitely doing its job there. Cameras are solid. I take so much pictures with that device. I rely on it so much, and it never fails, which is the weird part. Like, I know if I want to take a picture, that's the device I take out. And I'm not trying to put any other device down, but it's just the consistency. It's just ridiculous. So for me, if I wasn't working on like a hands-on video for the V30, the Honor V30 here, I wouldn't have taken my SIM card out. And I think at some point or another, I will start using it again because I'm going to be, covering other devices and other shows. So I need good pictures. I need a device that I can rely on. I'm not trying to knock anything down. It's such a good phone.
Well, I feel like you've mortally wounded every other manufacturer out there, and you're obviously a Pixel shill. So nothing you say we could ever take with any legitimacy, geek, fanboy, nerd. No, I think a lot of my experiences have mirrored yours. For stills photography, I'd agree, where there's an ease of use, there's a simplicity, it's a streamlined approach. I think we've kind of accepted, we've sort of tagged Google for offering one of the highest quality versions of this nothing but the shutter button approach to photography. It's something that I think Apple has been rightfully praised for
Yeah.
this generation of iPhone also. I think my experiences have been just a hair more critical than yours, where a ton of what I do, especially for shooting family memories, is video. And
Yeah.
that's where it's been so difficult kind of prying LG out of my hands over this last year.
Oh man.
But
Yeah.
for the whole phone experience, the fluidity of the UI, just the quick responsiveness of the Pixel 4, that's really what that momentum kept me using it as my daily driver, keeping the SIM card in the Pixel 4 XL. But again, I'm not the general average consumer here, because one, I'm shooting and producing a ton of 4K 60 frame per second video from my mobile devices, and
Exactly.
two, I have access to more than one phone at a time. This stuff would get really expensive. I wouldn't expect consumers to be walking around 2 or 3 cell phones in their pockets at any given time.
No. No.
So I had that benefit. I had that perk of, okay, we're gonna go out to my daughter's dance recital. I can count on the Pixel 4 for taking some really great photos, but I really want to get 4K video for grandma. That's where the LG comes out, but my SIM card is still in the Pixel 4. That type of split experience is one of the most difficult, I think, kind of roads to navigate, where you're talking about the different pros and cons and this and that. But as the main daily driver smartphone experience, I really feel like people trashed the Pixel 4. I don't really feel they gave it the fair shot of really using it. And I keep coming back to, this was a really compelling experience. There's something special here that you don't get from just reading the spec sheet on what Google had to offer.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I do have to maybe clarify a little bit about my experience in this. You're right. My experience is primarily skewed over to basically photography, still photography, not video. So for video, for me, I tend to rely on, let's say, an RX 7100 or even
Right.
the DJI Osmo Mobile. So not that I don't like the video, and like you said, depends on basically what frame rate, what you're using. If you want to be able to
Totally.
shoot 4K 60, I think LG and the manual functions that we have built into LG devices are absolutely second to none. They're the best. That to me, if I have to basically put it in as far as control and what you are able to work with it, I think Google offered us a little bit of, I would say, control over now that we get now with the update on the Pixel 4, the ability of adjusting the contrast and the brightness a little bit and locking it, which I also found very functional. But I still primarily use it for photography and, of course,
Yeah.
just smoothness of the UI, overall running Android 10, latest updates, all the good stuff. My thing I would love to have on this, obviously, is maybe at some point or another actual support for Android 10, desktop mode. That to me is like,
I mean, I feel we're going to talk about NexDock later on in this
yeah.
podcast.
So we'll lead into that. Yeah. With that.
It's such a curious division of resources at Google, where there are pockets of Google that feel like Microsoft back in like the Windows Vista, Windows 7 days, where Microsoft, we would circle the wagons, but they would all point their guns on the inside of the circle, not on the outside of the circle. And here, I mean, we see the parts of the Android team that are working on additional functionality, not necessarily highlighting that functionality on their first party device, on their flagship phone device. And it's a little troubling, because this would be a great platform to showcase what it is that Google can accomplish, but they don't seem to be firing on all cylinders yet. So I don't know if it's something hardware related, if they're purposely removing the functionality of HDMI output or some kind of desktop mode hardware control, or hopefully a switch gets flipped when Google feels that they've polished up the launcher for the desktop mode, and then it'll be a more seamless experience. Right now, they don't want you to jump through hoops. They don't want you to play with a beta or an alpha version of this solution.
Definitely
They want
alpha,
you to
yeah.
get the finished version of it. I can't get a beat on them. I really don't have confidence in Google in either direction that that's what they're doing. It's either kind of scattered, or it's a really long process that they've got an end goal in mind. And and neither really sounds like Google. Like Google has kind of like a short memory for their projects, and I'm not sure what the case is going to be for the Pixel 4, or if maybe we just never get this on the Pixel 4 and it shows up on the Pixel 5.
I think the way it looks like right now, at least in the current state, I feel like the Pixel 5 will definitely be the one to showcase it. I think what we learned from last year and what we're seeing now is that they're leaving it to third party. So, like OnePlus, there's a workaround to turn it on OnePlus devices. LG, like I think we all saw your video, the V50 with the Android 10 update, did actually do a much better approach to the launcher on the desktop mode. It's basically built over it. And I feel like
it's like a Dex and Huawei. Obviously, huge lead on using that type of that type of feature.
Years, yeah.
I was happy that LG at least fixed the screen sizing. I mean, basically, that seems to be the major issue that LG fixed, was when you plug it in on a OnePlus, the pixel pitch, the font size, everything's way too big for a monitor. It looks like you just blew up the phone display. And LG seems to be doing a much better job resizing that. It's just kind of curious that Google has even allowing us the ability to screen share.
I think
would still be a benefit.
Those would be some, even just mirroring our display. This is something that I feel like at this point, I feel like it's still a hardware limited, and maybe a hardware that they just did not turn on. And that's why I feel like the Pixel 5 and whatever the next generation of the Pixel line device, not the 4A model. I feel like the 4A, and we'll talk a little bit more about those, for the most part, will mirror what we currently have, and they're more budget oriented. So those are, I do feel like, a desktop experience is a premium feature. I don't think that's everybody's doing it. I think the people that are doing it right now, like Honor or Huawei and Honor and LG now, as well as Samsung. LG is a little bit new on it, but I feel like Samsung and Huawei have done an amazing job. Actually, it truly is a desktop experience. I mean, when I'm using it on the NexDock, it just absolutely blows my mind how smooth, how easy it is, and how much it feels like an actual laptop experience, which is that's the main reason for it.
We've talked about this on numerous conversations, recorded and offline. It's we've been overbuying for compute power in our phones for years. Using Snapdragon 835s.
Oh man, yeah, still very capable.
Can very, very easily rival older laptops for a lot of the computing that people might be inclined to do on a consumer grade sort of mid-price point laptop. I mean, like I popped Android 10 with the Snapdragon 845 on the Nokia 9. It's doing fine, and to a smaller degree, even some of the mid-ranger chipsets. I mean, you were saying like desktop mode, but you can do screen share on a Snapdragon 660, and for the most part, for a lot of the services that people might be inclined to use, it's not too far from a low-end laptop.
Exactly.
We've kind of reached parity for a lot of the services that people might be inclined to use. It's just whether or not the apps are going to properly scale, if they're going to support sort of resized windows. When you go into this kind of a desktop mode, there's a lot of things. Excuse me. There are a few things that need to be polished up.
I agree.
But we're not lacking for just the horsepower. We're not lacking for just the chipset being able to support this stuff. I really feel like Google doesn't really have a strong tablet presence. No one's out there rushing out there to buy Android tablets, excited to buy Android tablets. I feel like they're afraid to eat into Chrome OS, but this would be the perfect kind of transition. If we're going to start disrupting the laptop market and we're going to start using our phones for more of our daily computing, then I feel like Google probably has the best position to upset other companies' mid-range laptop solutions. I think they have the best argument. You could buy this $1,000 phone and this $1,200 Surface, or you could buy this $1,000 phone and this $300 laptop dock. That to me seems like a stronger play from Google if they would get behind some of their own first-party solutions.
Making the desktop experience maybe. Am I getting it that you feel like it's if they ran Chrome OS as the desktop experience, or are you thinking about actually because they left the tablet mode? The tablet mode. They're no longer producing Android for tablets.
Yeah.
So what we are seeing right now is basically Samsung's version of what they want to do. And you're right. Not everybody's clambing on running to the store to try to buy an Android tablet. I think Chrome OS is. I feel like Chrome OS, because of the fact that it runs Android apps and it does run Chrome OS right now, the way it stands, like on the Pixel Book Go, having that as a desktop experience is not a bad deal, and it's already out. So it's not like you have to reinvent the wheel. It's more like getting the teams to talk to each other and, have them meet the
I actually
hardware
kind of
team.
feel like at some point, Google's going to have to make a decision on what their next generation operating system is really going to resemble. I feel like the Android team actually has a better future than the Chrome OS team. The infrastructure and the investment in Android developers for applications is substantially higher. Chrome OS is going to be devaluing Chrome apps. We already have the timeline for how they're going to be removing apps for Chrome.
Exactly.
And they're going to try and improve Android app support for Chrome OS. And it's early. I mean, that takes a lot of work. But where we're at currently, a Core i5 Pixelbook Go performs significantly slower on Android apps than a Snapdragon 845.
It's optimization. You're right. It is. It needs some time for it to start functioning.
But I think for optimization, we can make Chrome. We can invest all of this work to catch Chrome OS up to where Android is for most apps, or we could polish up the launcher for the desktop mode in Android and just give us some slightly better tools for a more desktop grade browser. And I feel like that's a way easier path for Google to eventually manage. As these apps have gotten a lot better: video editing apps, photo editing apps, content creation, Office and document services. We're all now going mobile. I mean, a lot of these things have already started to clear up the problems that people had with mobile workflow. So I just think for Google, the next immediate step, before we get whatever next generation operating system we get, like Fuchsia or whatever Google's going to call it, I just think it's easier. It's way less resource intensive to clean up a launcher and improve the browser capabilities than it would be to properly optimize Chrome OS for all of the different Android apps out there.
I think that's the main challenge that they're going to need to face. But I think it's going to need to require them to actually have most of a good number of their teams to work together, as opposed to the way sometimes I feel like, a project has a team and they work on it. And I feel like they need to, just polish it. So the goal, we'll have to obviously see what happens at Google I/O. I think they announced the dates. I think it's the 12th of May, if I'm not mistaken. And it'll be in Shoreline Amphitheater again. So we're definitely going to hear some of their main goals and some of their aspirations, and hopefully I'll be there. I'm not sure. We'll see how things go. We'll see. Last year was a lot of fun, but
I do get that sense. I think Google is a little like Steam. If a project is popular, then a lot of people want to work on it. It gets a lot of momentum. We see a lot of traction. If a project is less cool, it's more difficult internally at Google to get people to work on it, and it starts to wither on the vine. And I think we've seen that over the last couple of years. So many Google initiatives that weren't instantly super crazy successful and popular,
and then later on
they get killed fairly easily. I mean, I think a lot of us have those concerns with Stadia, but getting back to the Pixel 4, I feel like this was a solid year for Google to spell out what it is that the Pixel has to offer the Android community. But I feel like that messaging, that marketing, was taken out of their hands with all of the leaks. So when that phone leaked a month early, Google didn't really get to tell the story of what the Pixel 4 was supposed to be. And they never really seemed to recover in the mind share of the tech enthusiasts, which is kind of a shame.
That's why we need these type of long-term, reviews and approaches to devices, specifically devices that may not necessarily get the initial super positive buzz kind of around it. And that's the reason why I felt weird about how things were literally like they were just passed on, and it's like, oh, the Pixel 4 battery sucks. That's just not going to happen for me. I can't use this phone. And I'm like, at the end of the day, Android needs a few more days than just initial first couple of days of turning on the phone for it to optimize to your usage. Plus, you just loaded a whole bunch of apps. You've done so, like the first couple of days of usage on a phone are never typical of your day-to-day activity. There's a honeymoon phase, which you just want to try everything. You want to try charging, doing everything, installing, like in my case, 300 apps. Who does this? Every day. So to me, you need to give it a few weeks. You need to look at it a month later, 6 months later, 3 months later, because the fact of the matter is
we've gotten a number of updates. I feel like performance has been polished up. I feel like some of the issues I mean, there's still plenty to criticize. There's no perfect device. And I'm frustrated by people who use that phrase and then overlook the shortcomings of companies that are significantly more popular. Because I feel like that same consideration should be given to Google when they are trying a few things that are ambitious for a 2019 smartphone.
And as you said, they're adding features. The December update did include a few new features that they added to the actual system, as well as the security patch update. So
if I were playing armchair quarterback, I think Google missed an opportunity to to support macros better, because I think that's something that would help a lot of the confusion on the Pixel 4. When you look at the Pixel 4 performance against the battery life, there are a ton of individually listed settings that contribute to that battery draw, from the air gestures to how the phone wakes up to the face unlock to the 90 hertz refresh rate display. And I think for a lot of consumers out there, not for tech enthusiasts, if tech enthusiasts are complaining about this, then I think they're bad at tech. A tech enthusiast should be able to look through the settings and figure this stuff out. But when I look at maybe, is this a phone for my grandmother? What she would need are 3 big buttons with like a green, a yellow, and a red. And you push the green button and you get 3 days of battery life. And you push the red button and you get 6 hours of battery life, but it's all of the eye candy at the highest tier of performance and nothing slows down. And that to me, I think would be one of those things. Like if Google is going to say that they can make an iPhone competitive device, I think it's very clear the Pixel 4 has their sights set on the iPhone.
Exactly.
If that's their argument, then I think we need that kind of push button ease of use. If they're trying to make some other argument, which I don't believe they are, like a professional grade device, they're not calling it a Pixel Pro, so I'm not putting that on Google. Then I think it's okay if you've got myriad numbers of manual deep settings and things to change and switch around
and to figure out. Yeah, no, exactly. It's you need to be able to understand that you can customize the experience. The same thing with any other device. And I think maybe the statement when somebody says this is the perfect device, they need to actually caveat that, say this is the perfect device for me, because what you and I want or what you and I use out of a device will be different. What you use out of it, you may be a videographer, your main bread and butter is video, and you do video all day long. You're going to come out from this with a different experience than what I come with. For me, I love the computing. I love the processing, the audio processing that we have here, the assistance response, everything being native to the actual phone, not having to wait for an internet connection. Because and it's hard to explain till you use it. Once you realize that there is not that delay, that little half a second or whatever, where it's connecting to a server to bring it down, and you see that every single word you're saying is actually transcribed correctly. And for me, even in Arabic, I used the live transcribe in Arabic, and that thing was on point. I like it. And that's what I want out of my device. But again, till you try it, it's hard to say. But
also it does come down to, before we get to verdicts, it also comes down to someone reviewing a Pixel 4 for what it's not. And that's an implied comparison. That's not a review, because you're not really reviewing what the phone actually is. And I think Google could do with some better messaging here. Again, I mean, I'm not putting this all on people completely misinterpreting the phone. I think some of the fault, just like with another brand like an LG, they're not good at some of this outreach.
That's
they're
a
relying
department they
on
need. Yeah, they need some help.
they're relying on tech enthusiasts, and unfortunately, right now, tech enthusiasts are looking at their YouTube metrics more than they are their own actual experiences with these devices. But Google is a software company. I feel like they will always be a half generation behind the trendiest, most popular hardware features. I feel like that's always going to be the reality of living with a Google device, but we're always going to be a half generation ahead for software services and for sort of the bleeding edge of automation and of search ubiquitousness. And that's where the Pixel 4, like you were saying, the live transcription, it's easy to shrug that off, especially if you don't really use it.
Yeah,
But
if it's not a feature you use, you're exactly. Or if you don't use the assistant on your phone, you won't realize how fast it is.
But it's also, like you're not really reviewing the phone if you're shrugging that off. That is one of the main contributing benefits of playing with the Pixel, is that kind of bleeding edge software services support. So that again, I mean, it becomes a frustrating conversation because people have largely already made up their minds. People who watch tech videos have already purchased devices
That's
and are
true.
coming to
Yep.
our channels to see what to make sure we said nice things about the gadget they purchased, as opposed to sort of the more even-handed approach towards reviewing and comparing these devices against different price points. It's supremely frustrating when you pick up a phone like the Pixel 4 XL at $1,000 and you compare it against an iPhone 11 Pro at $1,000, and that's a good fight. There really isn't a clear winner, but the Pixel makes a number of arguments in its favor, and to try to kind of shrug that off when people blur the lines between that comparison. Like I've seen a lot of, well, why would you get a Pixel 4 XL? You should get an iPhone Pro Max. And you're like,
Yep.
okay, well, that's $100 more for the larger screen. It's still a lower resolution screen at a slower refresh rate with half the storage. Oh, you're
Exactly.
comparing it against a $1,300
$1,300 version.
iPhone, and you're complaining about the 64 gigabytes of storage at the starting price for the Pixel 4 XL. That's not an oranges to oranges comparison. That is you purposely making the iPhone win at the most expensive tier of iPhone so that you can talk trash about the Pixel because there are more Apple fanboys watching your videos.
It's
Pixel
an SEO
fanboys.
game sometimes, and I feel like and that's always a challenge. I feel like the tech should be able to talk for itself. You need to present the actual pluses and minuses in a conversation, and because I don't try to guide the person to say, look, this is the best phone for you. You should buy this over anything else. At the end of the day, when I compare it, I'm saying, look, these are the capabilities that you're getting from both sides. These are the shortcomings on both sides. If you go with Camp A or Camp B, you need to pick the one that works best for you. You may not agree with my opinion. I may have convinced you to go buy product B, but at the end of the day, just make the decision based on your needs. And I feel like with Google and the way Google's been doing things and the work, I mean, we all remember the whole split screen state, how split screen came to Android and how we started having it as a native function. Well, guess what? LG and Samsung had split screen functionalities on top of Android built into their UI for years before even Google considered putting it in there. So I feel like, to kind of circle it back with a little bit with desktop, the way we were talking about it at the beginning, I feel like due to the fact that Huawei, LG, Samsung, and other manufacturers have desktop mode, I think Google can no longer keep it on the back burner. I feel like it is basically centered, basically a main focus, right? Dex has always been upgraded. Samsung always touts at their launch events. I feel like LG needs to start showing those functionalities, those extra functionalities. How great the audio is out of their microphones, how great the video control is present there, and that's what I want to see. The advertising budget that they're using right now, not focus on, hey Google, like a feature that is not even native to the. I mean, it is native.
A feature that's replicatable across the entire smartphone industry.
Exactly. That commercial could have been any other phone, and it would have still been the exact same commercial.
Totally.
And they should switch it over to say, guess what? We have a headphone jack, and a damn good one. Hopefully we don't get demonetized for this. But you know what I mean? Like a quad DAC built into a headphone jack that now is like a...
I feel like
literally are the only ones.
because I know a lot of people have also, cause I made a similar sort of statement in my Pixel 4 video that this is a very small part of Google's Alphabet's larger organization and
Exactly.
all the
Yeah, yeah,
different
yeah.
departments and teams, and it's not a prime profit generating part of the market. It's a way to reinforce sort of good practices on what an Android device should resemble. And that's debatable, obviously. I mean, you got a lot of people who are fans of other phones that would disagree with Google's assessment of their own operating system. But I feel like if we're going to take phones seriously, and this goes for LG as much as it goes for Google, as much as it goes for Sony, who I
Yeah.
think had a really strong hardware year, but was also
Very.
overlooked. I feel like there are a lot of lessons that they could learn from a company like OnePlus that have nothing to do with the actual hardware they produce. And I don't see where there's the same type of community-driven initiative to build a grassroots fan base around those products. OnePlus's forums are not a place just to go and complain. Like LG forums or Google support forums are just places to go and I almost said a bad word. But like they're not places to foster a sense of community. And I mean you can look at something
Not
like
a community. Yeah, I was going to say with with the Google forums, I feel like there are some areas you can go to get some help, but it's not necessarily the same way as
but
OnePlus
again,
fans
look at
are.
OnePlus. Like they started
Exactly.
out, people flip out when they give away some $20 bullets earbuds. And their photo contests are largely bragging rights, not like, oh, you'll win a phone if you share a great photo from a OnePlus. It's like you'll get kudos if you share a great photo from a OnePlus. That takes time, and you can't
Yeah.
astroturf it like HTC tried to force their community initiative back during what was it, the M10 days,
Oh man,
the
M10,
HTC 10 days. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a while back. But it was a bad look because you had a whole bunch of people out there like talking trash on comments and they weren't really a part of an HTC community. I feel like Google could benefit from something like that because it shifts the narrative away from pure popularity and market share. You know, OnePlus devices have seen a surge in North America thanks to carrier distribution.
Exactly.
But they're only just starting to crawl into the middle tier of devices sold. You know, we don't talk about OnePlus as a failure because they only operate at like, I don't even remember what the sales figures are, but I think they're only in the top 6 or top 7 sold devices over $700 with the OnePlus 7 Pro. To me, I like to make this analogy where we look at the Microsoft Surface lineup and we look at it as a successful series of products. I don't think anyone is out there trashing the Surface as being a part of the Windows ecosystem. But Microsoft only occupies between 4 and 6% of the Windows
PC.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
So we don't talk about them as a failure. You know, we're not looking at that. Oh, only 4%. How terrible that. You know, Microsoft is obviously a no buy, and this is awful. I feel like Google needs to find their messaging around this because they don't want to eclipse Samsung. They don't want to eclipse LG. They certainly don't want to step on Oppo's toes.
No.
But they also want to have their own their own platform to showcase their own services. And that to me would be a healthier way of talking about that product. Similar to the Surface. It's not a failure because they're not the number one seller of Android phones. They are another competitor alongside all of the other companies. And that's what makes this ecosystem so vibrant and what makes it such a compelling offering if you want to stay in the Android ecosystem. And that to me seems to be a fairer way of commenting on what the Pixel should represent. But again, Google needs to lead that discussion, and they've not done a good job of leading that conversation, reaching out to general consumers, kind of sidestepping the complaints of the tech elite who know everything about everything, and then also making sure that this is consistent messaging with a community-driven approach. That to me is going to be the failing of most other smartphone manufacturers at the moment.
It is a big challenge. It definitely is a big challenge. The way OnePlus did it is very It's almost like you had to be there at the beginning to try to understand the I think this just the morale behind as a OnePlus fan, which I personally am, and I've always been a fan of OnePlus products ever since the beginning. The approach that Google needs they need to figure out, or at least capitalize on some of the success they had last year with the Pixel 3a and the 3a XL. Well, mostly the 3a, not the 3a XL, because we all know that the 3a, the smaller of the two, performed much better. Which kind of slightly, and I'm not going to try to drive it too hard, but we're going to just dive into the next segment
it's a good transition
of our conversation.
Point. Yeah.
So basically, we're hearing some rumors of obviously two new versions of the Pixel 4, the smaller, I would say the smaller brethren, the more budget friendly. But the rumors are indicating that possibly that we won't be getting an XL, which is sad for me, but
no, it's the correct is the right decision to make. Was the only good way to do this.
It is, and we had this little. I explained to you, I like the XL. Nothing's wrong with a smaller form factor.
It's price. I mean, it has to be.
It price. Is a price, yeah, exactly, and obviously, so people are wanting, and people do want a Pixel device from Google that is reasonable. A Pixel device that reminds us of the Nexus price point of when Google made phones. The first Nexus was not $1,000. It was $300, $400. Mm-hmm. It was reasonably priced. It was stock Android, vanilla Android, and the best that they offered. And that, I feel like some of the experience you get with a Pixel that's a 4A, or hopefully what they're talking about. So there's potentially two versions. One that's running the Snapdragon 730, and one running the Snapdragon 765. Both mid-range chipsets from Qualcomm, but the 765 will have the 5G moniker because of the compatibility with the I think the X52, if I'm not mistaken, not the X55, 5G modem. And so obviously I can see from your reaction is that you're excited that they're doing two smaller models as opposed to a big the XL / model.
Well, I really wanted to spend time with the smaller Pixel 4. I spent my review time with the Pixel 4 XL, and it's fine. But I really do want to see more smaller premium options.
Absolutely, and at that price point too. I mean, I think at launch they were running a promo for $100 gift card with it. Yeah. Like you got the phone for $399, but you got $100 back in a gift card. I'm like, what?
Yeah, my Pixel 3a is actually over on the desk, over on the bookshelf right now, so I can't quite reach it. But it's not so much excitement. I think it's just the practicality of where this market really is. Like, I think we're going to see Apple make a similar pivot with two sizes of two different flavors of phone, and this pricing starts to get a little confusing for consumers because we've always equated the bigger phone, what more expensive phone. So the Pixel 3a XL ran into a very brutal price performance fight because that pricing put it right up against some of these premium mid-rangers. That
I was gonna say, it got in it. I think was it the 500? Was it 490? It was no.
It was like $399 and $499. It was $100 price.
Oh, it was $100. Yeah, for some reason I thought it was like a $50.
Whenever you equate screen dimension with a $100 price difference, it's going to make a very different argument for where it's positioned in the market, and it's hard for me to make that recommendation against a OnePlus.
I agree.
There are those solutions in the market that offer up a bang for buck, which is more competitive. And that's why the Pixel 3a, the smaller one, was so compelling, is because we didn't have anything in the United States at that tier of performance right at $400, and easily found for a lot less if you shopped it, if you got a deal, if you signed up for Fi.
Yeah, I was going to say,
gift card from Best Buy. It was
they had
very
carrier
easy.
support. They had it right out of the box with all the carriers. It was not an exclusive for anybody.
She didn't get it at launch. My sister got a Pixel 3a, and I think she got it with $100 off and 3 months of Fi service for free. So, I mean, that's almost like getting the phone for free. Like it was pretty intense. The deal that she got on that. So that's what was so compelling about the 3a. That's what was really so exciting, was here in North America not having a lot of competition at under $400, and arriving with such a beautiful experience. The Pixel 3a feels indistinguishable from most premium phones as a daily driver communicator. And that's the other thing that I think really took the geekery, the tech enthusiast scene by surprise, is the Pixel 3a showed in stark contrast that most of the world is buying mid-ranger and entry-level phones. Samsung's pivot to the A series shows us a much larger market for mid-ranger and below than for premium mid-range and above. And you could always tell who really spent time with a Pixel 3a, who really reviewed it, and who was just like bagging on it because the specs weren't good enough, because they were genuinely surprised by how well that phone sold.
Exactly.
Like if you see anyone and they're like, they're trying to make excuses for why they missed the boat on the Pixel 3a, it's because they didn't really review the phone. Anyone who really picked up and used that phone had a perfectly fine, if not genuinely good, experience using that device. That again, it's when we get to the Pixel 4a, because of the way that we equate size with price, I think it's the right play. It puts a little bit more focus on their premium options. We should expect the Pixel 4a to sell substantially better because of the lower price tag. It's kind of like Toyota versus Lexus.
Exactly.
All manufacturers are going through this right now. If you live in this little bubble of tech gadget geekery, then you would think everyone was walking around with Note 10 Pluses. But no, the reality of this market, much lower price points, much lower barriers to entry, and we should see that split. You know, Toyota outsells Lexus like 12-1 for cars sold, but we don't act like Lexus is a failure because they don't sell as many. And I kind of want that for phones too. The Galaxy Air A series, much more compelling for a majority of consumers out there. The Pixel 4a, going to be more compelling for consumers out there. And then there are going to be folks who want a little more horsepower, who want some nicer, some sleeker, some slicker features. And where $1,000 starts to make sense are when you're doing more aggressive work on your phones at any given time, or you want the label to show off that you could spend more money on a fancier product. And really, that should be a tiny minority of the market, where the vast majority of people are out there driving Toyota.
Exactly. And I feel like that's the right move is for them to have a 5G and a non-5G model present. And I think, it reinforces the same stuff that I learned at CES not that long ago, that this is the year of 5G. Everything was 5G this year. It's not just IoT. It's just, it's 5G and how 5G is going to revolutionize the world. But it's the fact that most manufacturers are jumping into it. So my hope essentially is that the same computing power that we have, and I'm talking about like audio processing, those level of optimizations that I love about the Pixel 4, make it into the 7 series. The 765 should be more than capable of handling anything to that level.
Anyone who's talking trash about the 600 series chipsets, I have to assume that you're bad at tech and that you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you have to use it for some time. Yeah.
Actually, since the 625, it has been a wonderful experience in the 600 series. The 660 is nearly indistinguishable in the hand for most of your daily driver apps, services. You can still render 4K video almost as quickly as like a $700 or $800 laptop is going to perform. In fact, my Pixel 3a can almost hang with some of my 8th and 9th gen mobile Intel chipset devices.
It's an interesting approach.
You're not really hurting for features or for performance, and then you just get the extra, like the extra icing. It's the gravy on top of that delicious meal when you start climbing into the 700 series and then up to the top of the line Snapdragons.
That's what my hope is. And my hope is that we do. I feel like if Google, and as you said yourself, Google's about services, about software and analytics. They live on analytics. That's what they do. And this would be a big, just see what happened last year and double down on what's working and go straight for it. I feel like this is going to be a really good win. The hope is that, we'll hear about it before I.O., but there's a really good chance, obviously, that they'll announce it again like they did last year at I.O., and it'll be available like shortly after. Actually, even the day of, if I remember correctly. I think people were able to pick it up the day of, so it's good.
if we're going to be critical about the mid-ranger Pixel, the Pixel 3a and the Pixel 4a, really, I think what we should be trying to keep an eye on isn't necessarily the main core specs. I don't think it has anything to do with a Snapdragon chipset. I think it has everything to do with what type of onboard and co-processing Google includes with those phones. Excuse me. Again, when you look at like the Snapdragon 855 and you get people complaining that the Pixel 4 doesn't have the 855 Plus, and that's not as good as the OnePlus 7. The OnePlus 7T.
Yeah.
You're missing the astounding co-processing that the Pixel 4 is capable of, and for intense heavy lifting situations like video rendering, where the Pixel 4 is an absolute screamer. Easily the fastest phone of 2019, handily destroying the iPhone 11 Pros. I mean, it's not even close. I cannot overstate this enough. I mean, I can't overstate this. I can't comment on this enough. Okay. For the phone that is supposedly the garbage and not fast enough and not good enough for the specs, I'm seeing significantly faster performance for that type of content creation, heavy lifting scenarios, 4K video, rendering, editing, producing this content. And where it just sort of starts to struggle a little bit is reaching the absolute fastest frame rates for gaming. And that's one area where the 7T pulls ahead slightly because Qualcomm binned a slightly more powerful chip for that 855 Plus. I mean, that's the conversation we should be having. Exactly. So if a Pixel 4a comes out with some type of co-processing hardware for image processing, for video processing, we could be looking at a 700 series Snapdragon chipset, but actual in-the-hand performance that could rival 855s easily. And that to me
I think that's the comparison.
Is what we should be focusing on.
That's the true comparison. Yeah, exactly. Because the 765 is, from the demos, from what they talked about, because we didn't get a chance to play with the 765 at the Qualcomm
I know,
Summit.
I was really hoping, because you got some hands-on time with the 865, but I was like, I think that there's something, I'm really hoping Qualcomm does it, but if Qualcomm doesn't, if Google can make sure that there's some custom hardware built into that phone, just a little bit.
Some horsepower into that ISP and make sure that we're getting the right,
very disruptive.
And that's why I'm so excited about it. It's from that surprise new set of hardware to the actual success of it and people, loving it. And I think that's the approach. I think the 4A is something to look forward to. It's going to be a great, hopefully, announcement that we'll see. And I'm hoping, like I said, I'm hoping at some point or another we will start seeing screen mirroring at the very least be turned on as a function. And the reason why I'm mentioning that specifically is because I want to talk a little bit about the NexDock before we're done with our show. Both of us have had an opportunity to use the NexDock for about a week now, I think, roughly. And both of us have put out videos, so I'll give you guys a link, obviously, to Juan's video, which just by the way, while I was filming my video, you were in the video. I was watching your video on my phone, and when I plugged it into the actual, to the dock, your video of the NexDock was in my video on the NexDock. So there you go. You're there. You just didn't know.
I'll make sure that you show up in more of my videos too. We'll go hand in hand into promoting each other's content.
But so what I wanted to talk about obviously is both of us backed this project. This is not a sponsored thing. We did not do any kind of special thing. We're
Kickstarter,
yeah. We both looked for it, and I think you backed it up before me because I didn't realize it was actually the campaign was going. But I think we both got into it. Right before I think I/O is when I think not that long before I/O last year, because I got a chance to sit down with them during I/O. I actually saw the prototype. But how has it been for you? How's the NexDock 2 been working for some gadget guy that Juan Carlos in your experience?
This has been the realization of a dream that we have been dancing around since the earliest days of Asus transformers and Motorola laptops.
I still have my transformer, by the way.
I mean, I'm so upset that I ever gave up that first generation transformer tablet keyboard combo. I've been dying for the realization of a universal solution.
Exactly.
Where we don't have to rely on a proprietary phone build. It's not like the Asus PhonePad, where the tablet could only work with one model of phone.
And I think it just, yeah. So from a point of reference, if you're not familiar with this, it was essentially a tablet that had a kind of a dock, I would say, a dock for the phone in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And
basically, you would slot the phone in, but that meant that the phone had to be exactly the same. And for as much as I always wanted Motorola to come back to this idea with Moto Mods, that too would have been a proprietary interface, which now would be defunct. We wouldn't be able to continue evolving on that idea. I think it would have been great for Motorola. You just snap the phone in with some magnets, and then it takes over for the laptop dock.
And they had it set up correctly. You had the pins on the back. You just literally put it on. It would have been perfect and easy to use and easy to justify. But I feel like the way the NexDock does it, and so from what I saw back at I/O to what I have now in the hand, it's definitely a very different product. It's a much more mature, solid product.
It's a lot more refined.
A lot more refined, bigger battery, backlit keyboard, better display. The overall, the best way to describe it, this is what I've wanted ever since Project Linda, because I feel like that's the closest that I found. And Project Linda, for you guys, if you're not familiar with it, is when Razer's approach. It was a concept demo that we saw at CES where they used the Razer Phone 1 as a dock, and they put it actually literally into the actual casing, which looked like a laptop, but the phone became the touchpad, basically your mouse pad for the phone, and you got a desktop experience out of your phone, which to me was like, oh my God, we've wanted this for so long.
Yeah.
Again, it was proprietary, but Next takes it out. There's no proprietary here. You just connect your phone. We're talking about a USB-C port, and again I'll link you guys to the videos that we both did. But there essentially there's USB-C ports on the side of the actual dock, or I would say the lap dock. It's not a dock itself because you don't dock anything to it.
Right.
And the beauty of it for me is every time you connect a phone to this, you're getting the best experience that your phone is capable of providing you.
Yep.
If you have a phone that has 12 gigs of RAM, guess what? The NexDock has 12 gigs of RAM. You have DeX, you're having DeX there. You have EMUI desktop, or even the LG V50, which is what I wanted to touch base with you. Your video did such a good representation of what LG's forte into this, and the resizing and the imaging. We talked about that a little bit at the beginning. It's such a good approach. So very happy with it. I love the fact that it charges my phone at the same time as I'm using it, so I don't have to worry about battery.
Again, I mean, it's like, do you want an LTE-enabled laptop that you then have to add another gadget to your cell phone bill, or do you just want to utilize what you already have on your phone? And then when you're done using your phone as a laptop and you want it to be a phone again, it's fully charged and ready to go.
And you're ready to go. Yep.
I've gotten a number of those criticisms. Like what people want to see is you make it a tray with a hole cut out, and then you could slot your phone into the laptop so your phone becomes the touchpad. And that's an obvious compromise. I mean, I could see where that would be kind of cool, but anyone complaining about that is missing the fact that the NexDock isn't built for just phones. If you make that the primary functionality, then you don't have a touchpad when you want to connect it to anything else. Absolutely, and so I've hooked it up to a Nook, a little Intel Nook. I mean, if I wanted to make my Nook like a little file server, I wouldn't need a monitor on that Nook all the time. But when I do want to connect something to the Nook, pop in a cable, I get the full desktop, I can interact with it, unplug it, and then be on my way.
Yep.
I don't have to worry about finding a mouse for that because the touchpad needs a phone to be the touchpad. Exactly. And it's silly, but it's other things too. Like that makes the frame more rigid. You don't have a big empty hole, which could get dirty or get dust in. It would be more expensive to manufacture. If you tried to make some kind of slotting solution, it wouldn't be universal for all phones out there.
No.
You wouldn't be able to guarantee that all phones would work with this well. You might damage your phone, like maybe inserting it, pulling it out. You wouldn't be able to keep your phone in a case. Enclosing the phone is going to make it run hotter next to the battery in the laptop.
Functionally does not make sense. I don't think it would make. I think Project Linda would have succeeded only on the fact that it actually supported the Razer phone, and I think that's why
the only way to make that work is if you make it proprietary to one manufacturer, and then you also make it more complicated because you'd probably need active cooling, and then you'd never be able to use your phone in a case.
And which will,
that
we all suffer from, not suffer, but we all would have that problem. It's
again, I kind
usability.
of feel like there's some gadget short-sightedness.
Yeah.
There's a gadget fan like, oh, I think it's a deal breaker. They need to do this, and then it would be perfect. And you're like, if you thought that through for just a second, you would realize why, for a Kickstarter company, a tiny little boutique company, that was not the right decision, and that this actually makes the product more useful. Again, it's so silly, but I plugged a Chromecast into it.
Yep.
It's a
Exactly.
completely enclosed, powered Chromecast streaming solution now,
I
which is
plugged in
great
my
because
camera to it, which was also a very nice
second-
thing. An external monitor. Yeah,
an
second
external
monitor.
battery-powered monitor for a
That
camera.
lasts a lot longer than the battery on my camera. I have
Right?
to say, I did that test. Yeah.
It's about expanding functionality and then also supporting a couple other solutions than just phone. But again, kind of getting back to some of the things we were talking about previously. Even when it's just screen mirroring and you don't have a full fancy desktop mode in your phone, I plugged it into a BlackBerry Key 2.
Yeah.
Key 2 with a Snapdragon 660 has HDMI output. You can run presentations from it. You can edit documents on it really easily. You can reply to your emails. And I think if someone were inclined for that tactile experience, it's a beautiful synergy. You go from tactile keys on the BlackBerry Key 2 right to tactile keys on the NexDock 2.
Exactly.
It's a really well considered all-rounder product. It means that there are a couple gaps in the lineup for someone who would want a very specific kind of use. But I think the compromises were the right compromises to make it more accessible to more people.
My only thing that to this point, if I have to say one thing that I'm bummed about, and it's not even about the Nex, it's the fact that Linux on DeX isn't supported anymore.
Yep.
Because I would have loved to have Linux running on this straight off
Totally.
DeX, because that's like the perfect transition right there, built in.
Yeah.
Flip it on, and it just. But so
Samsung's all about like removing really cool features from their products, though. So what are you gonna do?
it was never like fully even released. That's the weird part about it, right? It was always like beta, right? And then they
Yeah.
finally supported the Note 10. Actually, no, even I want to remember. I think the Note 10 didn't get the support, or forgot. But the short
But
answer
it's-
is, it's a
it's
short-lived
more-
thing. Yeah.
I think Samsung showed DeX was viable, and then DeX will become their skin for the Android 10 version of desktop mode, right?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the direction we're heading in. Samsung, I should be given credit that they showed that this was viable alongside Huawei. Huawei and Samsung deserve equal credit here.
Absolutely, and I feel like if you use either one of them, you'll get a good experience, a very good experience, not even just a good one. It's a very
But
good
as
one
long
with
as
the
there's the
iterations.
backbone for this in Android 10 and beyond, then there's no need to have a completely standalone proprietary software coded solution that takes up way more resources for your software developers at Samsung and at Huawei.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now they'll be able to better incorporate this, and they'll still have the lead. Like it'll still probably be another year or two before other manufacturers can catch up with as polished an experience as what you get on Huawei or on Samsung. But hopefully that means that there's less resource intensive development needed at Samsung and Huawei to keep up.
That's so again, and I always like to circle it back, but that was exactly what they were doing before with the split screen functionalities that we had.
Yeah.
Once Google actually implemented it as actually part of the code, and it's part of the OS. It's no longer an addition. It made things a lot easier for them. They both of them actually stopped using their own proprietary version of split screen, and we no longer have that side launcher on the side to make sure the apps are compatible.
Right.
You know what I mean? All of those
Yeah.
things kind of went out, and they all they use it, and it is better. I think that's always going to be better, and it's better implementation, more compatibility. Developers can start feeding into it if they want to turn on that function or turn it off. Having an app compatible in desktop mode, it'll be kind of like if they want to be part of Android Auto or not be part of Android Auto. You
Totally.
just pick it up, and then now Android Auto is native into Android 10. It's no longer an app. So all of these things is the direction that we want to go.
But
So-
one last note for the NexDock.
Yeah.
Again, with it being a little tiny Kickstarter company, I've actually gotten really good support. I did not notice when I first started shooting my NexDock, my first look video, that there was a big ol' ugly dent in the very front left corner of my NexDock. So if you go to my video, you can kind of see it.
Oh,
I
I have
just
to look at
didn't really have a bunch of close up because I didn't notice it. It was as soon as I was done publishing that video, I went to close it and I saw that there was like light coming through between the screen and the bottom casing.
Okay.
And so then I was like, oh my, I was just gutted. Like, there's this huge gnarly dent. It's actually separating. I can get a thumbnail in there. And I reached out to the NexDock people, and they overnighted me a bottom panel before they knew who I was.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't like, I'm a tech reviewer and I'm doing this video and I need this and do that and help me out. It was like, hey, I just got my NexDock. I'm really excited about it, but my casing has a dent. Is there anything that we can do? I really, personally, I did not want to send it back because the cycles of product take a while. I was going to say,
yeah, and then the whole Chinese New Year was about to come
Totally.
in. You would have basically just like, might as well just not forget about it.
But I didn't. But
nice.
because the edge had bent up, it would have put a pressure point on the glass of the screen. So I never would have been able to put it into like a laptop bag. It would have cracked the screen at some point. But yeah, 2 days later, I pop off the metal back cover, I snap on the new one, screw it all in, and it's totally fine. So again, for a little boutique company, before having to play the I'm a tech reviewer card, service me, I got excellent support on their product.
They are very good, and I'm like I told you, I said I met the actual team back at I/O, and they were very, very helpful, and I'm glad that although it did take a little bit longer, I'm glad they took their time, and I'm glad that they saw some of the concerns they saw from the first shipment, and they did do better quality control on the second one. And of what the one obviously mine did was actually part of. So for me, very happy with NexDock 2, and I definitely will be looking to making more content on this. It's such a versatile piece of hardware, and it's universal. That's the thing. It works with everything. And to answer a lot of the people, like at I/O, what I did the video, the hands-on, there actually is a clip that you can buy from Amazon. It's basically a display / phone
monitor clip. Yeah.
Yeah. And that solves the whole having the phone laying on a surface, whatever. The actual hinge on the display is actually very sturdy and strong.
Yeah.
That you should be able to put a phone on it, clip it on the side, run the cable, the USB-C cable, and use it very nicely. And I think that's the best experience. You don't have to worry about your phone laying somewhere and kind of where do you put it. But yeah, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, because I don't have a clip like that, and that is one of the things. It's not good in your lap if the phone is.
So that
loose.
That was it's a functionality
totally
when you're out there.
Fix up that issue, yeah.
And they're super inexpensive. And I asked them, I said, why did you not include one in there? I think their main concern at the time was just compatibility. They cannot. Some will be compatible with some devices, and as we all know, devices are getting bigger and so on. So it's better to pick it up, and it's not that expensive. So if you're considering it, as you said, Juan, under $300 shipped right now in pre-order. I'll give you guys a link to that in the description below, as well as to both of our videos that Juan did on his channel and myself for the NexDock. And first and foremost, I want to say again, welcome. Thank you very much for being part of the podcast, the Saturday morning with the Side of Tech.
I'm happy to join. And again, I mean, like we just need to share more of our normal offline conversations, because when TK and I get together, the only difference is like I've got like food.
I was gonna say
hanging out of my jaw, but it's the same conversation.
Exactly.
This is like how we actually like chat about this stuff.
So that's why, and that's like I said, that's why I wanted to have you on the show, and you, as you guys have seen also in the past, I've been on the podcast, with him, and the goal essentially is to just try to build up on this, and I do want to bring back basically this as either a weekly or a bi-weekly show, but the goal is, I like this form factor, and I mean form factor, I mean the approach, and I love his show. That Juan also does his show on Mondays, every Monday at 9 a.m. If you guys like to check that out, as well as his Patreon information, I'll give you guys also all that in there. Support him. Make sure you listen to him. And 2020 hearing health. Speaking of which, I forgot I did get the headset that we talked about. So this one is going to be coming out very soon.
I'm really excited about that headset.
The Puro, I'm hoping I'm not butchering it. It's either
if anyone was following my podcast, that's the same company that made active noise canceling Bluetooth headphones for kids.
Yeah.
And now they're making a gaming headset where
it has a voice
really
limiter.
Easy.
Yeah.
It's really easy to set volume limits, very high quality audio components.
Yeah.
But the focus is not blowing your hearing out while you're gaming. I'm very positive on Sound Labs. I think they've been doing really solid work for for kids, I'm very curious to see what they're going to be doing to turn their sights on
For
grown-up
gamers.
use too. Yeah,
Well, no,
especially for
absolutely,
gamers.
Yeah, yeah, especially for gamers because that they generally tend to want to increase the volume as best as possible to hear everything. So the goal is there, and I've been playing some games with it, so I'm very happy with it. And actually the mic on it is actually pretty decent. I'm actually
It's
very
solid.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and supports both USB and 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, which is very, very nice for me because I can swap between mobile and PC in a heartbeat. So we'll hopefully have some content on that very much in the near future. Juan, if you can let everybody know where to find you, if they don't already know. So.
For sure. I mean, obviously, if you search around for some gadget guy, you'll find something of mine. Juan Bagnell on YouTube, but search for some gadget guy, you'll find my videos. And then the main hub for where all my work is going is somegadgetguy.com. I also produce for Newegg, doing gaming and PC build commentary for Newegg. And then you'll hear me harassing people about lesser known technology brands on a variety of other podcasts and services.
Are we going to see you soon on TikTok? Yes? No? Maybe?
Maybe. Again, anything's possible.
Anything's possible. And then for myself, as usual, TK Bay on the webs. And actually, if you guys would like to see a more of a landing page as well, I'm starting up, or I'm bringing it back, the tktechbay.com site. So that it will be my landing page for all things TK Bay. But TKDSL 8655 on Instagram and Twitter, and TK Bay on YouTube. So thank you very much. Like and subscribe as usual. Make sure you go check out Juan Carlos's channel. And of course, follow him on all of the socials, Twitters, Instagrams, TikTok if he decides to go on that. But of course, on Twitch as well, since he actually does stream on Twitch for his podcast on Mondays. We'll see you guys in the next video. And of course, leave us in the comments below some ideas. What would you like us to focus on or talk about next time?